And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live as we get ready to jump into the realm of the ridiculous and see what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, have a little bit of dialogue with those of you who were able to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you are listening somewhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, most of the time, on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat, and you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. No felines in the room again today. I am sans cats. They've abandoned me today. As I go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chosen to join us for the live portion, and naturally I do read through as many comments as I can. Anarchy is here from rural Minnesota, wishing people that are in Milton's path blessings, good luck indeed. Donna Beaver is here. Thumbs up, like, and share, she says. Please do. Helter is here. H12. Dragon. Brian is here so far. Cyberjack Sr. chiming in and saying hello as we get ready to jump off into the news and see what is going on in the world. You get a kick out of this. Breaking news from IntelliNews. Ukrainian missiles strike and claim the lives of North Korean military officials. Oops. Oops. And Urban Angst has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Story goes on to say a recent missile strike by Ukrainian forces near occupied Donetsk city has reportedly resulted in the deaths of several North Korean military officials on October 3rd. The strike is said to have killed 20 Russian soldiers along with 6 North Korean officers who were present to consult with their Russian counterparts, according to unnamed sources within Ukraine intelligence community cited by the Kiev Post. Additionally, 3 other North Korean soldiers sustained injuries in the incident. The presence of North Korean military personnel in the region has drawn attention, particularly as it comes amid growing military cooperation between North Korea and Russia. The Kiev Post also noted that Russian forces were demonstrating infantry, assault, and defense tactics to the visiting North Korean officials, highlighting a potential exchange of military knowledge that could have significant implications for both nations. Not likely. North Korea has sent engineers. They're not soldiers per se. They're not combat soldiers, they're engineers. If they were putting on a demonstration, it's a circus. They do that especially in a lot of Asian countries. It's a thing in their military to put on a show. Especially if it's martial arts related, which is probably what was going on. I doubt that they were exchanging military information. Most likely they were putting on a little circus show for them with fighting stunts and things like this. But now that they've accidentally killed 6 officers, Korean officers, it does open up the opportunity for Korea to get more involved. And Chris wants to know, where's the coffee cup photo? It's not there? Is it missing? I'll have to check on that. And the Jericho is here. He says, oops is an understatement. No kidding. No kidding. But, you know, they just willy-nilly fire rockets all over the place. And what do you expect? What do you expect? Yeah, I'll have to check and see what happened. YouTube does that sometimes. They screw up and they drop the photo. And then it looks wonky. But yeah, most likely, especially if you go to any... you can find lots of videos of it on the internet of not just North Korea, but any of the Asian countries' militaries. And they do things like that, bending steel bars and breaking bricks and, you know, punching through burning boards and whatever, all sorts of stunts like that. And Tuck is here. Glad you could make it. Says they're on the phone. But this is important in that it does afford the opportunity for North Korea to get more involved than just sending engineers to, I don't know, build outhouses or whatever the hell they're supposed to be doing out there. That is a problem. That is a problem. It could grow into a problem. And Justin Case has joined us now. Did anyone else notice the image missing? Like I said, I'll have to remember to correct that later, because that does happen from time to time. Thank you, ScrewTube. Something else to mess everything up, why don't you? Also, just as important, since there is another hurricane coming through the region, New York Post article, Watchdog found $7 billion in untapped FEMA funds, even though the DHS Secretary Mayorkas said there's nothing available for future disasters. Yeah, remember, FEMA's supposed to be broke. It's supposed to be broke. The allegations are they're broke because they siphoned off money into the migrant industrial complex. And then they denied that's where the money went, but still said they didn't have any. And evidently a watchdog group found the money for them. Department of Homeland Security Inspector General's report from August reveals more than $7 billion remain in emergency funding that could be used for natural disasters, even though DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said last week nothing was available. There's no money. Mayorkas, who's 64, I don't know why we need to know his age, but whatever, told reporters following the devastation of Helene in North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida that the Federal Emergency Management Agency does not have the funds to endure more hurricanes this fall. Oh, that's too bad. Quote, "We are expecting another hurricane hitting," the DHF chief said, days before Hurricane Milton began picking up speed in the Gulf of Mexico. "We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season and what is imminent." That's unfortunate. No money. You heard the man. You heard the man. But DHS Inspector General Joseph Kufari found in his August 14th report that as of October 2022, FEMA had $8.3 billion in unliquidated funds that were meant to relieve declared disasters from 2012 or earlier. More than $7 billion of that potentially can be returned to the Disaster Relief Fund, the report notes, referring to FEMA's dedicated fund for natural calamities. So what he's suggesting there is that they had stuck $7 billion. They had put $8.3 billion in a fund for a relief effort in 2012, but never used $7 billion of it and have not transferred the money back yet. It's just sitting in that account. So far, the feds have paid only $4 million to Americans that were hit by Helene in the Southeast, providing up to is the operative phrase, up to $750 in immediate aid for individuals to help cover the cost of groceries and emergency supplies. I think it's remarkable, too, that when Harris was questioned about it, she was wearing a belt that was worth almost $800. Just for the point of argument here really quickly. And Preparedness HQ has joined us, as well as Sven and Raccoon. Glad you could make it. Sven says Kamala is on Stern, perfect since the hurricane mess. Yeah, because not because there's a disaster and she should be out there dealing with that as vice president. No. It's more important that she campaign instead of canceling this radio show and moving on to that. She was on The View too. And on The View, what's her name? Whoopi Goldberg introduced her as the future president. It's like, yeah, wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. Indeed. Future president. You could do worse and you could do better. Chillin' Dave has joined us. Glad you could make it today. But apparently, they're still sitting on $7 billion after claiming they have no money. Maybe they were hoping that it would sit in that account long enough that everybody would forget about it and then somebody could, transfer it to their own account. Because there's a lot of misappropriation going on with funds in government. Turk says up to, I've known disabled senior citizens who got less than $20 a month from SNAP. Up to can really mean up yours. And SNAP, of course, is food stamps. And Monkey is here. And Chillin says, come on, don't you like Kamala's upbeat laughter? Indeed, that nervous laughter that she has while she goes and does these softball pitch interviews on The View and on Howard Stern and on Alice Cooper's radio show and whatever nonsense. Pathetic. But yeah, the money is there. The money's always there. I'm sure they didn't forget that it was sitting there. And of course, this slaps in the face of the $157 million that they're sending to Lebanon, which is not the first monies that have been sent to Lebanon. That's an additional funding, as I understand it. But who cares about that? Those are American citizens. Screw them. Unbelievable. As we move around here. Don't worry, though. Uh-oh. The story has been removed. I tried to open this story, and it's unavailable. They won't let me see it. The story was talking about that FEMA is prioritizing LGB Alphabet Mafia hurricane victims. That was also coming up in the news feeds. FEMA prioritizing. Let me see if I can find another article on it, because they pulled it down. They pulled that video down. I can't show it now. Oh no. But they have talked about that in the past. They have talked about it in the past. They talked about it last year, where they had a disaster preparedness meeting where they wanted to focus on helping alphabet groups as a priority over everyone else. But apparently I'm not allowed to show you that one. I've been cut off by the powers that be. Unbelievable. And Chillin says, I'll say the official view is exposed. No outside help, no government help allowed until we all kneel and kiss the ring. Indeed. Indeed. Tuck says they're prioritizing the ones who are most likely to set cities on fire. Can't set the city on fire if you're knee deep in water. Monkey says Internet Archive is great for bypassing the paywall and pulled down articles. She also got softballed on 60 Minutes, although he did try. He did try. And this is a New York Post article. We'll pull this up really quick. Talking about Kamala's 60 Minutes. Kamala Harris whiffs on economic policy answer, deflects questions about historic flood of migrants crossing the border in 60 Minutes interview. She didn't want to answer that question. Kamala Harris whiffed on an attempt to explain how she'd help boost small business and repeatedly deflected when asked about the historic flood of migrants crossing illegally into the U.S. since she's been vice president. In a 60 Minutes interview that aired Monday, Harris was unable to describe how her fiscal policies would work in, quote, the real world, including bypassing both chambers of what is likely to be a divided Congress after CBS News correspondent Bill Whitaker accused her of being unrealistic. Oh, I'm shocked. Quote, my plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class and you strengthen America's economy, Harris told Whitaker. That doesn't answer any questions. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy. Pardon me, Madam Vice President. The question was, how are you going to pay for it? Quote, well, one of the things I'm going to make sure, blinking repeatedly, that the richest amongst us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes. Oh, I'm so sick of hearing that. It's not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations, and I plan on making that fair. Which is not true and which won't work. You could confiscate all the wealth from all of the one percenters, and they couldn't run this country for a month with that money. It's just not feasible. There's no way you can do it to them without doing it to everybody else. Any economist could explain that. But she's counting on people who are not that intelligent, who are not going to do the research, or just want to believe that. Whitaker interjected, but we're dealing with the real world here. How are you going to get this through Congress? Quote again, Kamala, you know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses. What the hell? That's a word salad and a half. Harris's economic agenda, which includes increasing the amount in tax deductions offered for startups to $50,000 up to, is estimated to add $3.5 trillion to the national debt, according to nonpartisan analysis by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget released on Monday, even while raising taxes on corporations, the ultra wealthy, and others to the tune of $4.25 trillion. That's insane. Billionaires and other high-income earners also do not pay lower tax rates than teachers, nurses, or firefighters, according to analysis by the U.S. Treasury and the Congressional Budget Office. Quote again, and this is important, the top 1% income bracket shoulders or pays 46%. 46% of the nation's tax burden at the current taxation rate of 37%. The average tax rate for teachers, nurses, and firefighters based on those occupations' median incomes averages 22%, but could be as low as 12% for married couples. But no one's going to research that. No one's going to research that. And then she doesn't answer the question anyways. He asked her how she's going to do it, and she talks about how other people agree with her. And then she talks about that she's going to make sure that the richest amongst us are going to pay for it. And then she wants to invest in small businesses. That's not investing in small businesses. Also, you know what the thing is, and this is important also, the reason that most small businesses fail isn't because they lack the funds. If they lacked funds, it's because they're not making any money. If they're not making any money, A, the business was a bad idea. B, the business is in a bad location. C, they're not putting out a good product. Or D, there's too much competition where they are for whatever their services or products are being offered. So if you invest all this money in all these small businesses, knowing that the majority of them are not going to make it, you're flushing that money down the toilet. all it does is prolong the inevitable. If they got up to a $50,000 tax break for starting a small business, you're prolonging the inevitable if that business is doomed to failure anyways, because it has an inferior product or offer. It's in a market where there's too much of the same product or too much of the same service being offered, and so on. Or if they're in a really bad location, you don't put a gas station on a dirt road. You get the idea. Jane says, yup, Kamala's going to tax all the rich people, not do a thing to improve our future. Monkey says, fair share, a.k.a. moving the goalpost of making the certain value the new zero. And Dilo has joined us. Yeah, ScrewTube didn't tell him I was coming. Monkey says, ask Zimbabwe, where everyone was millionaires till they had to pay up to billions of Zimbabwe bucks for bread. Indeed. Chillin says Mexican peso did the same thing in the 70s. And Jericho says they're sick of hearing that too. I'm tired of that being the talking points. I'm tired of hearing about taxing the rich. We've been listening to that for decades. They know it won't work. It can't work. You could confiscate all their money. And like I said, you couldn't run the country for a month if you took it all. If you took it from everybody who was in the 1%er position, it'd run out too quickly. I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of hearing about reproductive rights. Tuck says, remember they admired the China model where the government owns all major businesses but plays as if it doesn't. No kidding. Chillin says, listening to the scamala. Definitely Weight Watchers approved. Can't eat with that gabbing on the tube. And Cougar is here. Haven't seen you in a while. And made a donation to the channel. Thank you very much. Always helpful. Wants to know how Dusty is. Dusty is doing great. Dusty is doing great. But he did ask her some legitimate questions. I'll give him that. I'm kind of surprised because she's been getting softballed all over the place. It's not even like an interview. It's literally like straight up campaigning everywhere that she's been doing these interviews, and she's blitzing them this week. But he did try. I'll give Whitaker credit for that. And she did go around those responses. She did not really answer any of the questions. And telling me a goal that you have that you probably will not achieve because you've already had the opportunity to do it. Telling me about a goal and not providing a plan for how you aim to achieve it, that's just dreaming. And you know I can't stand dreamers because they're all asleep. They're not getting anything done. All they do is roll around and pull the sheets off of you and drool on the pillow. That's what a dreamer does. And then they scream in the middle of the night, and then they get up 50 times to go to the bathroom. Dreamers. I can't stand it. I'm tired of hearing about dreamers, too. I don't want to hear that anymore. Should have a laundry list of phrases I'm sick of hearing from the media. Really tired of it. Really tired of it. She has no plans. There's no plans there. If there were any plans, they could have been done by now. It would have been done. You had almost 4 years. You and your buddy Biden had 4 years. And she said on The View, in the View interview, where she was presented to us as essentially the president already, that she wouldn't have changed anything that Biden did. Well, that's a great way to start. I wouldn't have changed anything that Biden did. And blame, of course, naturally, we blame Trump. It's all Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault. You know what? Maybe it was. If it was all Trump's fault, okay, fine. What are you doing now? You're the ones that are sitting in office now. Where's the excuse? Oh, because of him. And a lot of you know I've worn a lot of hats, and one of them was as a manager of Family Dollar. Just, to frame this up real quick, okay? I took over their California street store in Topeka, Kansas, and the store was a disaster. It was actually on their closing list. They wanted to shut it down because of severe loss, because of severe theft, not just from shoplifting, but from employees and even from the manager who was robbing the store. Okay. The place was filthy. The shelves were a disaster. They were over a year behind on planograms. The back room was packed to the door. Okay. It was the previous manager's fault, previous administration's fault that the store was a wreck. But now it's my problem because they put me in there as the manager. Get rid of troublesome employees, clean up the store, set the new planograms, clear out that back room, change the ordering schematic. I could have sat there on my hands for months. And then when the district manager came in and says, why the hell does the store look the same? You've been here 6 months. Well, yeah, but the previous manager, man, this is his fault. You think that would have flown, or do you think I would have lost my job? Do you think I would have lost my job? They've had almost 4 years, and the situation is worse than when they found it. You can't blame the previous administration for that. And Flukeman has joined us. He says, Kamala never answers anything or any of her questions. She shows her awful laugh more than making sensible decisions. That's a nervous laughter. It's a cover-up. It is a cover-up is what that is. But again, you get tired of that. You get tired of that excuse. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's corruption all the way to the core. And speaking of which, we may as well bounce. Well, we're still in New York, actually, because that's where Kamala is, and that's where she's on the Howard Stern show on Sirius XM, and that's where she went to The View, and that's where she did her 60 Minutes interview. So we're still in New York. But while we're at it, we may as well talk about Eric Adams, because things just keep getting worse for him down there. Politico article, Philip Banks, not Philip Banks, Uncle Phil? Oh no, another top New York City official resigns. Poor Uncle Phil. He was the voice of the Shredder in the Ninja Turtles cartoon too. Not this Philip Banks, but the actor who played the other Philip Banks. Phil Banks, the city deputy, he probably calls himself Phil Banks so that people won't make the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air references. Phil Banks, the city deputy mayor for public safety, resigned Sunday night, becoming the 6th top city official to step down in the last 4 weeks. Banks had his home raided and personal devices seized by federal investigators last month as part of a federal probe that, get ready for it, appears to be completely separate from the investigation that led to the federal indictment of Eric Adams. Holy crap! It's not even on Adams' watch. It's something different. Adams became the first sitting New York mayor to be federally indicted 2 weeks ago after he was charged with bribery, wire fraud, and other crimes. In the wake of Adams' indictment, City Hall has seen more departures and federal raids as a host of local, state, and congressional elected officials call on the mayor to resign. He has maintained his innocence and pleaded not guilty. Governor Kathy Hochul, who has the power to remove Adams from office, has put increasing pressure on Adams to clear his administration of top officials, saying it's important to instill confidence that is wavering right now. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Oh, it says, while federal investigators have not made the details of their investigation into Banks public, it appears to be focused on allegations that Banks's brother, Terrence Banks, improperly lobbied for firms seeking city contracts. Oh no, more bribes. More bribes. Oh my God. And Chillin says, how can she possibly be the representative for us in the world? Because the powers that be put her there. And Chillin says you don't quit jobs like that when you're innocent. Yeah, you wouldn't think so. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for New York for this week, because it runs even deeper. New York Daily News article, because there's been more resignations since that article was printed. It says 4 aides of New York Mayor Eric Adams out in dramatic day of departures. It's a 15-hour-old story. And it does talk about Philip Banks here also. It says 4 more aides to Mayor Adams have left his administration in the past week. So that brings the total to 10, right? A dramatic set of City Hall departures that comes on the heels of multiple other high-level resignations and the mayor's indictment on federal corruption charges. Among those leaving are 2 longtime aides ensnared in federal probes, Rana Abasova, the director of protocol in the International Affairs Office, fired on Monday. Winnie Greco, the mayor's liaison to local Chinese communities, resigned. Greco was called in on Friday and told to resign, according to sources. Okay. Who else have we got here? Ingrid Lewis Martin, Adams' embattled chief advisor. Okay, and it says their heads were lowered and Lewis and Martin rested a hand on Greco's shoulder as they left the building. Lewis and Martin, oh, I love it. Like Greco, Mohammed Bahi, senior Muslim liaison to the mayor, golly, no wonder there's so much trouble in that state, resigned from his post effective Monday, a source close to the matter said, and Ashan Shutgati, a senior mayoral advisor for South Asian and Muslim affairs, was fired on September 30th, and on and on. Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. And it just keeps getting better. Just keeps getting better. Because there's more. Stay tuned, folks. There is more. There is more than just that. This one of the reasons that they left here. I'm going to pull this one up. Dramatic day of departures. And which aid is this? Here we go. Bloomberg article. They may as well, I mean, the governor may as well just terminate everybody right now because she has the power to do so. Bloomberg article, the aide to New York Mayor Eric Adams charged with witness tampering. Now we're threatening witnesses. The crisis enveloped New York City Mayor Eric Adams' administration deepened as an aide was charged with witness tampering and destruction of evidence, and a former fire department official pleaded guilty to a bribery conspiracy charge. Mohammed Bahi, oh, we just read his name, charged with urging an unidentified Turkish construction company head and 4 employees of that company to lie to the Federal Bureau of Investigation in a probe of alleged straw donor contributions to Adams' 2021 campaign. Bahi resigned from his job as senior community liaison on Monday. He was arrested and charged Tuesday, that's today, with single counts of witness tampering and destruction of records, each of which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. Holy crap. He is accused of deleting the message encryption app Signal from his phone when federal agents searched his home in July. Bahi was expected to appear in Manhattan federal court later on Tuesday. He may as well go back to the Middle East. Adams has been indicted on corruption charges amid a widespread criminal probe in which top City Hall aides have had their homes searched and phones seized by investigators. We know this. Also Tuesday, which would be today, a former New York Fire Department official admitted to taking thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for preferential treatment on building inspections and approvals. Brian Cordasco, a former Bureau of Fire Prevention chief, pleaded guilty to a single count of conspiracy to solicit and receive bribes by an agent of an organization receiving federal funds. Incredible. Incredible. Witness tampering, destruction. Yeah, and this, yeah, covering for who? Himself or Adams? And you really think this guy's going to walk away? They're going to bury Adams. They're going to bury Adams. Incredible. He doesn't have a leg to stand on, and it also calls into question. This is my question. The governor has the capacity to terminate or suspend Eric Adams as mayor. So then I got to ask, why doesn't the governor of Illinois suspend or terminate Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, the super mayor, bling mayor, you know who? Why doesn't the governor step in and suspend her pending investigation if a governor has that power? Because I've got another story lined up in a different state with the same problems. With a similar situation whereby the governor has that authority. Doesn't the governor of every state have that authority, or is it different? Can the governor of Illinois not step in? I'm not clear on that. I'm not clear on that. But while we're on corruption, it's been a while since we've been able to throw BLM under the bus. So here we go. We're going to jump from New York to California. Daily Caller article. California threatens to cripple the BLM group over shady financials after millions in donations have been revealed. Okay. Democratic California Attorney General Rob Bonta, in a letter sent in late August, demanded BLM grassroots file tax disclosures for 2022 that will reveal what it did with millions in unaccounted for charitable funds. If Black Lives Matter grassroots declines to comply with Bonita's request, its nonprofit status will be revoked and it will be taxed as if it were a corporation, according to the letter. This issue revolves around Black Lives Matter grassroots' failure to file 2022 disclosure documents, even though a large liberal charity called the Tides Foundation had reportedly given it $8.7 million, making it unclear to the public how those funds were used. I know how the funds were used. They got their hair did and their nails done. Black Lives Matter grassroots leader Melina Abdullah kept the expenditures intentionally private by declining to file tax disclosures because, quote, she didn't want folks to know how the money was moving. No shit. When they tell you they're crooked, folks, they're crooked. Black Lives Matter sources told Washington Free Beacon. Okay. While the group didn't file a tax return in 2022, it did file a document containing inconsistencies in 2023. Okay. The Tides Foundation, for instance, transferred $8.7 million to Black Lives Matter grassroots between 2020 and 2022. The Free Beacon reports. Despite this, the organization's 23 tax forms claimed that 23 was the first year it operated as a nonprofit. Oh, I see. So they took the money in 2022. They took the money for 2 straight years and then suddenly went into business. Notably, Black Lives Matter grassroots reported having about $4 million in assets at the beginning of 2023, meaning it offloaded a considerable portion of the $8.7 million transferred to it by Tides, and provided no paper trail as to how that money was spent. Quote, in my 20 years of Watchdog work, this is one of the sloppiest tax filings I have seen. Charity Watch Executive Director Lori Styron told Free Beacon in reference to the group's 2023 tax forms, "There aren't one or two mistakes here. This document is unusable for its intended purpose of providing public with a means of holding the charity accountable. It's unethical." Unethical. Wow. Another Black Lives charity stealing funds. Stealing funds. Chillin says at $1 brick, they can show the money was used and not stolen, can't they? I guess. Another BLM charity stealing funds, misappropriating funds, unaccountable for donations, no paper trail. Another one bites the dust. In the last year, I've read, at least a dozen stories like this? From individuals to entire groups within these charities stealing the money, spending it on themselves. Speaking of which, we may as well keep the ball rolling right into Ohio. Similar story. And this is going to be a News Nation article. Ohio BLM activist sentenced for $450,000 in fraud. You can't win. Toledo, Ohio man sentenced to federal prison after he was convicted of wire fraud and money laundering in connection with his nonprofit Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta. You remember that? Sir Major Page, 35, sentenced to 42 months in prison after being found guilty of collecting donations through Facebook for the BLM movement after his tax-exempt status was revoked for failure to submit IRS paperwork for 3 years in a row. God. He regularly posted on Facebook about social and racial issues to give his nonprofit the appearance of legitimacy despite no longer being tax exempt, and falsely told supporters donations would be used to fight for George Floyd and the movement. Page then used that money for entertainment, hotel rooms, clothing, firearms, and property he intended to use as his private residence. Must be nice. Must be nice. And then, the prosecutor goes on that Mr. Page took advantage of a cause that was meant to fight social injustice and used it instead to line his own pockets with thousands of dollars in donations. I'd hate to break your heart, Mr. District Attorney, but that's all the BLM ever was. That's all it ever was. Seriously. That's all it ever was. A way for people to line their pockets. A way for wannabe activists whose job it is to pretend to be outraged about things that they probably don't even care about and don't even believe in, so that they could fleece suckers for donations. Chillin says they want some donations, especially the no paper trail type. Yeah, me too. You know that old thing about if you found a bag of money on the street, and my answer is, what bag? What bag? I don't know what you're talking about. Brian says that BLM in one word is exploitation. Pretty much. Pretty much that's what it boils down to, unfortunately. And anyone who might have believed in any of it might have thought that there was any credibility, just getting taken advantage of. It's a shame. Now, I'm going to jump. I think this is a Fox News article coming up, and this ties in with my question about gubernatorial powers when it comes to mayor elects in different states. says Governor Kemp, and this is in Georgia, suspends a Georgia mayor who's been charged with leaving alcohol in a ditch for inmates. Of all the stupid things to lose your job over, the mayor of a small town in Georgia has been suspended by Governor Brian Kemp after he was charged for stashing a bottle of gin in a ditch for a state prison work crew. Oh my God. These people. Thompson Mayor Benji Carey Cransford was indicted in August and subsequently arrested by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation on felony charges of furnishing prohibited items to inmates and attempt to commit a felony. Cranford allegedly drove to a store on June 3rd and purchased a bottle of Seagram's extra dry gin before leaving it in a ditch along Cobham Road in Thompson, Georgia, in the path of a work crew of state prisoners from the Jefferson County Correctional Institution. Oh my God. That's pretty stupid. That is pretty stupid. Didn't expect to get caught. I bet you he's done that before. I bet he's done that before. And I'm just curious about the population. Oh, wow. Thompson, Georgia is small. This is like less than 7,000 people. This is less than 7,000 people in Thompson, Georgia. It says 6.81, 6,810. Or 6,879, excuse me. 6,879, according to the 2024 census. Of all the stupid things. Just days later, Thompson police asked the GBI to conduct an investigation into allegations that Cranford left alcohol to inmates. Cranford was taken into custody after a city council meeting in August. He was booked into the McDuffie County Jail and released on a $5,000 bail. That's an expensive bottle of gin. Kemp issued an executive order officially suspending Cranford as mayor Friday. Cranford has taken office earlier this year after defeating incumbent Kenneth Ersey in the election last year. A bottle of gin. Seagram's extra dry. Oh my goodness. Not Seagram's Golden Wine Cooler. Seagram's extra dry. Jericho wants to know who even saw him. You know, I don't know. You know what would be funny is if they confiscated it from one of the inmates and they checked it and they found the mayor's fingerprints on it. I have no idea how they figured out it was him. Brian says that his town has a population a little under 5,000. Who remembers who used to sing? See who's paying attention here. Who used to sing the theme song for Seagram's Golden Wine Cooler during the 80s? Who knows who that was? Who knows who that was? But again, this brings it up. Kemp signed an executive order to remove a mayor. So why is this not being done in Illinois when it's quite obvious that Mayor Henyard is destroying that town and misappropriating funds while they have all this back and forth with judges and with town councils and all that nonsense? Why doesn't the governor step in and do something? There you go. Dragon says Bruce Willis sang it in the 1980s, TV commercials for Seagram's Golden Wine Coolers. That is correct. And Bruce Willis was a singer, and he did sing blues, and there are albums. You can find Bruce Willis records if you wanted to look it up on eBay. Nature Nerd says FEMA basically has no money and hasn't helped the hurricane victims. Just how poorly Kamal is managing tax money. No, we read the story earlier. FEMA lied. They've got $7 billion sitting in an unused account since 2012. They claim they forgot. They forgot it was there. What money? Really? $7 billion? Yeah, FEMA's full of shit. And again, that just showcases how badly things are being run. How badly things are being run. Since I mentioned Illinois, we may as well jump to Chicago. I don't think we've talked about Brandon Johnson in a while. This is really interesting, actually. National Review article. Brandon Johnson gives away the store to the Chicago Teachers Union. Remember, Brandon Johnson has a very strong connection to the Chicago Teachers Union. He used to work for them. Doesn't surprise me. Reading, seeing what's happening here, it wouldn't surprise me if they installed him as mayor so that they could siphon off more federal money to the union. So the city of Chicago's public school system has been in a state of educational collapse for decades. That is true. It's accumulating debts outstripped only by the increasing amounts of money poured into the system and the plummeting test scores of its students. Personally, I feel that way about every public school system, not just the one in Chicago. The responsibility for this disaster can be spread around, but primarily lies far more so than with any elected politicians in the city, with the Chicago Teachers Union specifically. America's most infamously powerful and radical public sector union, local number one for Randy Weingarten's National American Federation of Teachers, and on Friday afternoon it became grimly clear what happens when a union as powerful as the CTU manages to get one of its own lobbyists elected mayor, because that's Brandon's old job. A little makeup party Brandon, you remember him. We read the article about how he has spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on makeup and haircuts from out of the city funds. The CTO has been preparing for years to renegotiate its contract with the city, and as part of the preparations last year, funded the mayoral campaign of one of its own paid lobbyists and organizers, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Johnson won the narrowest victory in Chicago history and has proceeded to govern strictly for the union's benefit. The CTU demands contemplate, among other things, Chicago public schools assuming $150 million of pension debt obligations for non-teachers in the CPS system at a time when the system already has an unprecedented $500 million budget shortfall, when Chicago Public Schools CEO Pedro Martinez refused to sign off on a $300 million high-interest loan that the CTU and Mayor Johnson wanted him to take out to fund new demands. Johnson began publicly pressuring his own school board members to fire him. Instead, the entire 7-person membership of the City Board of Education, personally selected by Johnson, which he began in his term of office, resigned as a group rather than accede to the unacceptable pressure. Johnson announced a replacement slate of school board appointees Monday morning, 7 people presumably selected for their greater responsiveness to the mayor's personal demands. The new board is almost certain to vote to fire Martinez, allowing Johnson to replace him with an appointee who will rubber stamp union demands. The Chicago Teachers Union looks likely to win everything it is asking for, which is precisely why its members elected one of their own as mayor. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Jericho says, oh, there's the 7 billion. Silly us. No kidding. Sven says Michigan education is plummeting. It is all across the board. It has been for decades. It's not just Chicago. It's all public school systems in the United States have been failing for decades. They started really getting bad. You've heard me talk about it before. When Jimmy Carter initiated the Department of Education, When big government started pushing around individual states on how to run things in their public schools, that's when the cookie started to crumble. It was never that fantastic to begin with, but at least it served a purpose. It no longer does. It no longer does unless that purpose is to ruin your children. But they're all failing. They are all failing. It's just Chicago happens to be one of the worst. And to make matters worse, during the C virus, during the pandemic, when schools were closed and they started initiating distance learning, the majority of students also finally realized how worthless public school is, which is why they didn't cooperate. Again, I know a couple of people in the Atlanta area that are in the public school system that are teachers, and they went from a classroom full of kids ignoring them to half of the kids who are supposed to be distance learning signing in, and then only 3 or 4 of them actually being even on screen instead of just turning on the camera and walking away. And even they weren't paying attention, had headphones on or whatever. They realized, hey, I'm not losing anything by not being in school, so who gives a shit? The huge mistake they made by creating the distance learning model was that the children now know that the system is worthless. They now know. They figured it out. I figured it out in junior high school in the 80s. It was a complete waste of time. I wasn't really learning anything. It's so much worse now. It's so much worse now. And of course, distance learning is pointless if there's no support system at home, if there's no one to enforce it, and the child sees no use in bothering. And then the Chicago Teachers Union manages to get Johnson elected over Beetlejuice. He's been worse than she was. It's incredible. Brian says they found out public school was more useless than they realized when they found this channel. I guess. These kids aren't learning anything. It's terrifying. And with each, it creates a generational curse. And with each generation, things will get worse. Things will continue to get worse. The more government is involved, the more screwed up it's going to be. The more social programming is going to be in it. More political programming that's going to be in it. The less emphasis there will be. I mean, they're removing analog clocks now because not just the students, but even the faculty, the young teachers that are coming in, can't read an analog clock. That's insane. It's not that hard. Jericho is saying that, isn't he? He says it really is. I have kids who can't read a clock. There you go. I don't blame them. I blame the schools. It's not that hard. They don't do Roman numerals anymore. They don't do reading comprehension anymore. They don't teach cursive anymore. They don't teach math without a calculator anymore. This is frightening. This is frightening. And yeah, expect Chicago to get worse now. Chicago's going to flush right down the toilet. It's going to flush right down the toilet. And again, I'll advocate for it. People, get your kids out of public school. Get your kids out of public school if you can. Seriously. They're not learning anything. And there's every excuse in the world. I don't have time. I can't homeschool them. I can't watch them. I can't this. I can't that. I can't. Yes, you can. You can find a way to do it. I had to do it. I had to take over for my kid. I couldn't do it with my middle boy because of the court orders, because of the situation with his mother. But you can do it. You can do it. You can get that kid out of there. You can find help. There are advocacy groups for homeschooling that will do it for you. just to get your kid away from public school. Just to get them away from public schools. Just to help save one more. Look for it. Seriously. It's incredible that system just does not work anymore. But with that, we are, you guessed it, at the top of the hour. So no felines. No one came in the room today. I'm shocked. That's 2 days in a row. I usually have at least one cat hanging around. We are at the top of the hour, so I'll go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk and Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Special thanks to Cougar. Cougar made a donation to the channel today. Always appreciated. And, of course, thank you everyone else who was able to join us here today. Hope you